Hello, welcome back to the TDP. Today is Friday, the last day of May. Can you believe it? 2024 is just flying by. I mean, there's like news cycles out the wazoo. And it's just causing everything to go by so quick. It's Trump trials. It's all of it. Convictions. Scandals. 24. The election year of the century. We're about at that quarter century mark. How's the 2000s working out? It's been wild. Think about the 2000s, folks. Just think about the 2000s. We had September 11th, 2001. Actually, even before that, when in 2000, it was the big Bush-Gore election, and the Democrats said that there was like some election interference there. So there was an example of election interference allegations right off the bat in 2000. So we should have known that that's going to be the theme of the century, that we're the new century, right? Election controversies. But Bush won. Then we had September 11th, which was kind of like a galvanizing thing. Even though it was a terrible tragedy, America like kind of bonded over that, and we became more patriotic during that period of time. But you know, it's crazy to think that was almost 25 years ago. But yeah, the 2000s. After that, you know, we had just the constant churning of wars that have happened since then. You know, of course, Afghanistan right after 2001, which was warranted. We needed to go after the people who caused that tragedy, that travesty, with taking down the Twin Towers. I think, you know, the focus really should have been at that moment to just only get Al Qaeda and Bin Laden and just kind of, you know, take it to those. But, you know, Halliburton had a better idea for their business. Who was that in charge? Dick Cheney was on the board, and you know they churned out that war machine. They got it going. They got us in Iraq. Let's take over Iraq. Let's take down Saddam Hussein, who did not have weapons of mass destruction, which they claimed he did, and he wasn't a part of 9/11. Like, he wasn't a part of that whole planning deal. So. I'm sure Iran is pretty excited that we did that, because now basically Iraq is just like a subsidiary state of Iran, and they have all of the oil and, you know, the riches from that. It became discombobulated, decentralized the government, and now they just have like a weak government that just pretty much houses different types of terrorists and operatives from Iran. And you know, I think well, that was just terrible. It should not have happened. And I mean, I think we were in Iraq until like 2014 we finally left, or something like that. And one of the things that Barack Obama did that I actually agree with was getting our troops out of Iraq. But what happened was it pretty much left a void, and Iran filled that vacuum. So Iran, and then you have the different terror groups that, you know, came in and did that. So that was up there to that. You know, this has been the century of war so far. I mean, we've had the Syrian bombings where, you know, Barack Obama authorized bombs using UAVs in Syria and different countries in that area, so that, you know, could kowtow to the military-industrial complex. Each bomb's thousands and hundreds and thousands of dollars. So like if you can drop bombs, that means somebody had to buy them. Of course, it was American citizens' tax money that paid for them. But, we're just supporting these rebel groups and supporting civil wars in different countries, which is crazy. It's like we're going back. It's like you should go back and watch the Eisenhower speech in 1960. And that's what happened starting in 2000. What's crazy is a lot of people will give George Bush Sr. a hard time. But when Iraq invaded Kuwait and we got them out of Kuwait, what did George Bush Sr. do? He refused to continue. He said, we're not going to fight this war. We're not going to continue fighting a war. We've accomplished our mission. Iraq's not going to mess with their neighbors anymore. Mission accomplished. We got out of there. As soon as, you got to hand it to him. That was a good move. That was a peaceful move. As soon as Bill Clinton got in there, got to hand it to Bill Clinton. He didn't push a war. He didn't start some wars. We did have some shady business, where we kind of provided funding to the Taliban in Afghanistan to help with their war against Russia. So, and then ironically, we ended up fighting against the Taliban after 2001. Like I just mentioned, Taliban was kind of aligned with bin Laden's group, Al-Qaeda. So it all kinds of comes together, and it's like a part of this big war machine that's been going on here. It's crazy. The 2000s. Bush got in. We talked about 9/11. We talked about the wrongful attack on Iraq. I don't think Saddam Hussein was a great president or anything like that. But I do think we caused a huge conflict and ousted him from power on false pretenses of having weapons of mass destruction and being involved in, the 9/11 attacks. So there's that. Probably shouldn't have did it. Anyways, moving on, we did have the first black president elected into office in 2008. And listen, guys, I'm naive as they come. I promise. I can be, but I try to use I try to think things through and have like a non-biased opinion about stuff. And at the time when Obama was voted into office, I thought it was a good thing that America was able to vote in, an African American into the presidency. I thought that said something about us and about the progress that we're making. Now, what came about was a disastrous economy. Some really shady things happened while Obama was in office. We were bombing. We never got out of Afghanistan. He did help us get out of Iraq, which was good. But other than that, it was pretty much, and Obama was like a kind of a good diplomat. Like he was able to talk and, was good at the podium and sharp. He looked the part, right? But at the end of the day, it was not a great, there was a lot of things came out of that whole presidency that just, kind of still linger around. But I'm going to say, once we got Trump in, he delivered on a lot of his promises. His policies on the border were really good. Stay in Mexico, apply for asylum in Mexico before you come to the United States. When we approve, we bring you in. You have a plan, help secure the border and keep people from just freely coming in. We had tariffs on China. We created the North American alliances with us and in Mexico and Canada. Our relationships were really getting better there. Our relationship with China was better because they knew they had to work with us to have our business, and that was working out good. We didn't start any new wars. I think he wanted to get out of Afghanistan, but it was really a tricky thing to do because I think we had been there for so long. They were so dependent upon us for martial law and to keep things in order that it was like a really tough puzzle to solve, and he never got to that, and that was probably one of his greatest regrets. He actually did have like a plan during that, if he would have gotten reelected, he would have, I think we would have gotten out of Afghanistan. But that's something else that ended up happening when, Joe Biden got in office. He decided to try to make a political point and get out of Afghanistan, which is great, but completely screwed that whole thing up. Left billions of dollars worth of equipment plus a military installation. They tried to get the American soldiers and the American people who were working in Afghanistan. They used the public airport, their main airport, to get them out when they could have just used the base, and they wouldn't have had that huge debacle with, people hanging off of the wings of the aircraft while it was flying off, plus the 14 Marines that were killed at the airport. And now, guess what? China has control of that huge base, and those billions of dollars worth of equipment are in the hands of Taliban, and they're right back basically where they started. So that was just a huge debacle, and I mean, it was handled badly. So out of there, immediately started working, when Biden was in office, immediately started working with Ukraine, and Ukraine and Russia had a deal to peacefully reconcile their differences on borders and, equipment and bases and things like that they had agreed with previously. But now, so if Ukraine is in NATO, and NATO has a deal with certain defense contractors and these defense manufacturing companies, that if you're in NATO, you have to buy weapons and military equipment from these companies. So that's why it's such a big deal. That's why we keep trying to get more and more of these countries to be in NATO, is because if that's how it is, then these big companies get richer. And if Biden is able to make this happen, he's going to get kickbacks from those companies. It's the same thing if it was a Republican. It's the same thing like when Bush was in and Cheney was in charge, was on the board while he was the vice president of Halliburton in these different places. So, it's all like a big circle of this churning out industrial complex of military arms and bombs and stuff. And you see, with Obama bombing, and now you have what's going on in there, and now we have the additional stress in the world going on in Israel, and they're having a hard time with all that. Trump's presidency was kind of like a monumental thing, just because he was able to come with strength and help, our United States work with the was able to help the United States project power across the globe. One thing that is always troublesome is the Middle East, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard about this, but there's something called the Abraham Accords, where basically, we're working with these Middle Eastern countries, and, having them, work out deals with other countries that they normally wouldn't. For example, Saudi Arabia had agreed to work with Israel and trade with Israel and kind of help with that relationship. And that's why Iran does not want that to happen. They're like hating Israel for some reason. I mean, I'm sure there's like a huge, long history of that, and I don't know it, but I do know that that Trump had, you know, some really good things happening there, and there wasn't, you know, all this bombing and all of these, all of this genocide and anti-Semitic talk. You know, October 7th was a rough day. You know, that when you have such unfortunate things happening, terrorist attacks where people are getting beaten and murdered. I'm not going to talk about how they were murdered, but you know how it happened, and it's gruesome, and hopefully I don't have to put things like that on this channel, but you know, sometimes you have to say things out loud. And you know, which brings me to freedom of speech. We're witnessing a very sad thing that's happening, and precedents that are getting set. Donald Trump was convicted of all 34 charges yesterday, in which boiled down to election interference from the 2016 election. And none of the individual charges were felonies, but when you put them all together, apparently they are. It is one big felony, I guess, based on the judge and the prosecution. Alvin Bragg, who is the district attorney in the Southern District of Manhattan, ran his campaign to become the district attorney on the premise that he was going to charge Donald Trump. He never said the charges that he was going to levy on Donald Trump during that campaign. But it's almost like in Russia when the Kremlin says, "Hey, you know, you show us the enemy of our political party, and we'll find a crime." So that's what happened. You know, Trump was the target. Alvin Bragg was, you know, the law. And all he had to do was try to find a crime. And, you know, with Trump's business, I mean, I'm sure, you know, you see, that's not the only trial he's going through. They can find a lot of craziness. But I think my point is, you can find things from everybody. And that's what I've been talking about. During the 2000s, we've talked about genocidal crimes that's happened with George Bush, with Barack Obama, with Joe Biden, and the only one really that hasn't created all of these bombings and genocide is Trump. He's the one trying to start peace. He's the one that's dealing with these other countries on an economic level and not on a conflict war level, right? The other presidents that we've had in the 2000s have all been about that, you know, about that war. So any war is good for the defense contractors. Any war. Watch that movie, War Dogs. There's actually several movies about the defense, about the war mongering companies around the world, and I mean it's a reality that we have to deal with. And we had dealt with it with bringing Trump, and there's a couple other candidates too. You know, one RFK Jr. that would I'm confident he would try to stifle the war machine. But you know that we live in a two-party system, and now one of those parties has convicted the other party, and that representative is likely going to get sentenced to jail. I don't see anything that would not point to that. I mean, he's definitely a Democratic operative. He's donated money to the Biden campaign. His daughter is a Democratic operative. She's a huge fundraiser and donor to the Democratic Party. I think she's helped raise millions of dollars for Biden and the Democrats, you know, over the past, you know, 4 years. So I'm not sure why he was not recused from being the judge in this case. Actually, I am, because it's a state or a local trial, and they are all Democrats, and they want the goal is to convict. So why would they recuse the most likely judge that's going to be able to help them hand that conviction? One thing they did was they did it in southern Manhattan, which was 99, 98, 97% Democrats. So how you going to find someone who's sympathetic to any Republican for a jury trial? You're not. You're just going to have, how do you think they was able to come out of that room so quickly with that conviction? I think they could have came out immediately, but they just made it look good by asking for some different documents and stuff, and it ended up being 12-0. So now he's convicted. So with all that adding up, the sentencing's on July the 11th. The Democratic National Committee, or the Republican National Committee, is like 5 or 6 days after that in Milwaukee. So they're going to sentence him, and then you have the convention. They're going to try their best to send him to jail. They're going to try so hard. That's what they want. They want to be able to call him a convicted felon every day from now until the election. I will say this. I think they're limiting. They're trying to take the field out, is what they're trying to do, because poor old Sleepy Joe can't talk. He really can't. It is insane watching him try to do an interview. It's insane even watching him read off of a teleprompter. When he reads out the pauses and, slurs words, like, it's crazy. He starts out good when the drugs are still hitting. After about 7 minutes, though, it's curtains for that speech. But they got him in the basement. Like, he doesn't come out very much. And then when he comes out, he says, like, a whole lot of racisms. He's constantly talking about how black people are underprivileged and how, the system is against them. I mean, he's projecting. So it's really sad. It's just like when the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, when he was coming out with this whole policy, talking about crack and how everybody that has crack should be in jail for 5 years at least. Well, his son wrote a book talking about his usage of crack and all the laws that he broke while he was on crack. He has pictures of videos and, of him doing crack. And I don't know, it's double standard all the way there, all the way. It's sad. It's sad. I would like to have a real choice come election time. I would really love that. But right now, there's no way in hell I'm voting for Biden. And I think that a lot of people feel the same way. I would vote for Trump again. And honestly, I would like to see like a change. Like I feel like we had Trump for 4 years, and yeah, I believe he did do good, but it's just so much controversy swirling. It's just hard. It's hard for me to think that, that America deserves that again, is all the controversy. No matter how good he wants to do, it's just a lot of controversy to kind of swallow. And next thing you know, you're going to have the complete divisiveness of our country again, just like kind of like it was at the end of his first term, and now with how it is now. I hope to have the opportunity to see that RFK Jr. has a chance, because I will vote for him if he does. If you listen to what he says, if you listen to the facts that he lays out, he's very courageous. He says things that he knows that is going to be taken a certain way by a lot of people in the United States. Or not in the United States, but a lot of people who are in the government system that don't like that he's trying to call out the pharmaceutical companies. He's trying to call out the big ag industry. He's trying to call out the military industrial complex. He's trying to call out all of these things that, that are injuring Americans. He's trying to call out the suppression of speech by the government to Americans using social media, using the justice system. He's trying to call all this stuff out. It's what Americans should be doing. We should call out the BS when it happens. Anyways, I could just go on and on about it. But what's your thoughts? What do you think? Do you think our freedom of speech is coming under attack? What's your thoughts on the U.S. presidential race this year? What's your thoughts on our options? How can we change this? How can we turn it around? My son asked me yesterday, because I go on these rants with him. He's like, well, what are you supposed to do? I said, well, you got to vote, number one. Number one thing you have to do as Americans, we have, I think it's over half of the American population just don't show up to the voting. We all need to vote. Because that's what's going to help our voice to be heard. And don't be afraid to mail in your vote, because they've changed the rules on it. You can mail in votes. Don't be afraid to talk to your friends about voting. Don't be afraid to take them to the voting booth. And don't be afraid to let your voice be heard at the ballot box, because that's the most important thing you can do. Another thing you can do, if you're really inclined to do it, you can become a political activist. You can help the people that you believe in. You can donate to campaigns. You can go out here and run for office yourself and try to make change on a local level. There's a lot of things that Americans should be doing. But, with the way this lawfare is going and convictions and things like that, you may be putting yourself at risk if you take a stand. So that's why we need to do something now before it gets too bad. Anyways, 27 minutes. I try to keep this format to 10, but it's a lot to talk about. It's a lot, and it's craziness. Yeah, it's craziness. Hey, it's the weekend. Friday's happening. We're going to the Poke Salad Festival this weekend. Very, very excited about it. I want to see my friends and family there. If you guys see me, talk to me. There's probably some people there that I haven't seen in 25 years. So maybe we're bald and we've got beards and we don't recognize. But if you recognize me, please come up and talk. I would love to catch up. Have a great weekend. I love you guys. Deuces.